Well, hi there and welcome. It's Jonathan Foust here. Welcome to this webcast. It's great to imagine you. Um, it's the last tail end of 2025. So I'm going to be guiding a short meditation and then exploring a little bit around the whole idea of knowing what your North Star is. Um, and I'll be talking a little bit about my annual review and take you through some questions that might be helpful for you to kind of sense what's going on in your life and what calls you in your life. Anyway, I hope you find this helpful. We're going to start off with some thank yous, and then we're going to move into a short meditation and then the talk. So, first of all, a big thank you to the Insight Meditation Community of Washington for streaming this and hosting this, to our producer, Glenn Harrison, for all the technical work that is all involved with getting this out to you. Also, a very big thank you to Rita Moran, who leads Mindful Movement before this class. You can learn more about her offering on my website and Facebook page. I've got a newsletter, a weekly that tells you what's coming up. And a couple times a year, I share my best photography, kind of a compendium of talks, all that good stuff. And finally, not finally, but close to finally, just a reminder, this is all offered in the spirit of dana, or generosity. I've received a lot through so many teachers over the years from just freely offering the practices and teachings. And I'm inspired to do the same thing. If you feel inspired to support me in getting this out, thank you. I appreciate it. And finally, I am leading a day-long retreat on January 17th called The Most Important Thing. And it's very much a day of inner reflection on sensing what really calls you and what from the past needs to be completed to move on to the future and all that good stuff. It's inward, it's reflective, but it's also, and what makes it so powerful, it's also relational. You'll have some time to hear from others and to share about what's present in your life. And it's a very inspiring. So that's that. I think we can move into our meditation now. Let's see. So, non-judging awareness. That's really what we're talking about when we talk about mindfulness. We're talk, truly deeply present and free of comparing, of judging, of trying to figure things out. It's this moment to moment, here and now, resting in presence quality of attention. So let's explore a little bit. How do we cultivate that? You might put your arms up overhead, stretch up. Stretch up through the left side, the right side, open your jaw wide, move your jaw from side to side, let out any sounds, get all the little wiggles out. Then, if you like, you can close your eyes and begin to slow down your breath. And you may notice how just feeling the breath, feeling the movement of the breath, automatically begins to draw your attention inward. And if you would, just for the next few moments, explore how intimately you can feel the breath on the inside. Can you feel the inhalation, the sense of expansion on the in-breath? Can you feel that moment of complete stillness between the inhalation and the exhalation? Can you track the sense of the exhalation, the falling of the rib cage, the inward movement of the diaphragm and rib cage? And again, that moment of stillness between the in-breath, or the out-breath and the in-breath. And as you continue to follow the breath, how much more could you relax or soften when you feel the breath moving out? How much could you let go with the exhalation? Could you relax the muscles of the face as you exhale? Could you relax your tongue and let your tongue fill your lower jaw? Could you feel the weight of your arms, the heaviness of your arms? And is there a way you could let this sense of the heaviness of your arms guide you into a sense of even deeper relaxation? If you bring your awareness into your abdomen, if you like to get precise, imagine a few inches below your navel and then a few inches in toward the very core. If you hold your attention here over the next three exhalations, how much more could you relax and feel? Can you feel or even imagine the whole body from the inside, space inside the body? And is there a sense of what could soften or relax or let go inside right now? You might sense now where you feel the breath the most predominant. And just sense if it's possible. And it's certainly not possible all the time, but is it possible to rest your attention here at this point of contact with where you feel the breath? And for these next few minutes, when you notice your mind far away, can you bring your attention back? This felt sense of the breath on the inside. It's a particular moment in meditation practice. It's the moment of noticing when your mind has drifted from the experience of here and now into a narrative, a story. And there's the possibility of, rather than chastising yourself or forgetting the breath, to celebrate that you just remembered. a sense of mild celebration that you are once again present. This breath, the sense of expansion on the in breath, that moment of deep inner stillness between the in breath and the out breath. And the sense of softening, relaxing, falling away on the out breath. And you might ask yourself right now, where is awareness right now? Can you locate what it is that is aware? And you might explore what it's like to widen your awareness beyond the sense of the breath and to sense everything that's changing. To simply notice what is changing right now. Can you let it be? Is it possible to relax back even more and feel the full stream of phenomena? Relaxed and alert and allowing. And for the next minute, what would happen if you let go of any sense of trying to control your experience? What would it be like to simply allow everything to be as it is, to change however it wants? You might now very gently deepen your breath. Let your body move, stretch in any way that feels good. Taking this time for your transition. And welcome back. About 11 years ago, I ran across the author James Clear back in his early days of bringing his work into the world. Since then, he's written the book Atomic Habits, which has become a bestseller. But he would post his annual review every year. And I was inspired by his honesty, and I was inspired by the opportunity to kind of clear the deck and refresh my intention into the new year. So I've gone through this 11 times. It's kind of a ritual of personal torture, to be honest. I've been a lifelong hacker, always looking for the best practices and fresh ways to make things happen. And part of it comes from creativity, from being lit up about life and sensing the field of infinite possibility and feeling really creative. And Another part of this impulse comes from an underlying clench, if you will, a profound sense of being on my way somewhere, which meant that I wasn't actually okay where I was. I'm the kind of person who's never gone to an alumni event from high school or college, in part because I kind of hold that older version of myself in judgment, maybe a little mild contempt, um, because I'm always pursuing a better me, this path of perpetual self-improvement. So I've done this annual review for over a decade now, and there are three questions that I explore that I'd like to share with you: what worked, what didn't work, and what calls me. And it's interesting, as I look back over them, my annual reviews have changed over the years. Um, I always threw in some numbers to look at, which was interesting. I only look once a year, the podcast downloads, YouTube views, stuff like that. And I hope I've changed a little bit, that I'm a little less grim when it comes to planning. I think I'm a little more aware of impermanence. And I think mostly the edge I'm testing from someone who's chronically a life hacker and wanting to be in constant improvement is I think I have a better sense of what it means to be in flow, just to be in the flow of things. And described very beautifully by the basketball player, I forget his name right now, who said it's about letting the game come to you. That's that is a game changer, if you will. So why might this talk be interesting to you? It's a little autobiographical, which is a little embarrassing. I'll keep my details minimal, but if you're in a place of reflection around what's most important in your life, I'm going to offer some questions for you to reflect on. Because really, anyone who's traveled on this planet anywhere in the last couple thousand years would always have a star. Quite often, the North Star would be their point of orientation. You know, wherever the tides may take you, wherever the winds may blow you, checking the North Star would help you to orient. And we all need to figure out what that is. That fundamental intention becomes a way of reorienting your life when you feel blown off course. For me, intention is not about deciding harder. I've come to find that intention is about actually listening more deeply. If you look at this through the lens of Buddhist psychology, the Buddha placed right intention or wise intention right after wise view. Because once you see the view, once you get a sense of the roadmap, then the heart naturally inclines toward the route that you're going to take. Once you know where you're going, what's the route? So, wise intention is not really about self improvement, it's more about alignment, about what noticing what leads toward freedom and what leads toward contraction. That's kind of it. What in your life is leading you toward more freedom, happiness, and peace? And what is leading toward contraction, self preservation, and fear? So, there are four basic movements around wise intention. It's been said that in lived practice, wise intention unfolds as four interrelated movements. The first is noticing what's working, looking for the good. The second is seeing what's not working, honestly evaluating what's between you and feeling free. The third is about conscious, non-judging correction. And the fourth is opening your heart, opening your mind to what most calls you in your life. And we do this all the time. It happens in meditation. If you have an intention in meditation to concentrate and be present, that's your intention. And then you notice, oh, I'm lost in fantasy. Then there's the correction. You bring yourself back. And then you ask yourself, so how does this moment want me to be with it? Noticing is all about. It's all about this practice is noticing. So first is about looking for the good. And it's interesting because so many people who have been on a path are generally on path of self-improvement, which is a noble path. It's about being a being a more aware person in the world, being a better partner. It's about being more healthy. It's about being a better communicator. It's about being less reactive. That's the path of means, the path of self-improvement. It's a noble path. There's also the path of liberation, which is a little bit different. But Tara tells this story. She's if there was ever a type A meditator, it was my wife. And she, as a young aspirant, she would meet with teachers over the years, and she would say, "Okay, now this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm working on. Well, what do you think I should be focusing on?" And every teacher would say, "You might want to just relax more." And she'd go, "Oh, that's it. I just need to relax. Now I'm gonna nail what it means to relax." Shockingly ineffective. And I love this from the Buddhist perspective because it's so stripped down. This is what the Buddha said to his followers. Abandon what leads to suffering. Cultivate what leads to peace. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Abandon what leads to stress, dissatisfaction, unsteadiness, and suffering. Cultivate what leads to peace, what leads to happiness. Someone asked a Zen teacher, "How do I know if my practice is really working?" The teacher said, "Well, are you suffering less or are you just complaining more skillfully?" So this talk may be embarrassingly autobiographical, but I just thought I'd share a little bit on my annual review and then turn it to you for some reflection. And there are a few lenses that are really helpful. I'll just take you briefly through these lenses, and I'd like to offer you some time to reflect. So the first is reflecting on the good, right? Exploring what's working, looking at gratitude. Such a powerful way to begin a life assessment. So the first lens is through health, through energy, through vitality. This is your life force. I'm in fundamentally great health. In the summer, I think I may have been in the best shape of my life. I was doing open water swimming a mile every day and ocean currents, which was a blast. Lots of paddling. I've been into functional movement, um, which has been really, really great. My VO2 max this summer, I don't know about now, but was 9 years younger than my chronological age. I'm a lifelong hacker when it comes to health. My plant-based diet really works for me about not only doing as little harm as possible, but I think it's the optimal diet for me. Um, I just started doing some functional medicine, getting more blood work, following Brian Johnson's work, where he's really, really um, exploring the kinds of supplements that actually really work. So that's health, energy, vitality, and radiance. The next one for me is around my practice around connection to spirit. And last year, I realized I needed some inspiration. So I explored what I call the gamification of meditation. Insight Timer is a great app. I've got a number of meditations on there, and there's a timer. You can customize your timer. And on your phone, it tells you how many consistent days you've had in a row. So I decided I was going to use that. And I just hit 402 days of consistent practice. And I hate to admit it, but there are times when I would meditate because I didn't want to break my streak. But that's a lot of sitting. I've sat some retreats, which has been great. The Year of Living Mindfully retreat, sitting for a week. I'm doing home retreats, a number of them. And I think with this whole idea of flow, of letting life come to me. My meditation has been much more around letting the moment come to me. There's more kind of resting in presence. I feel less identified and more free. It's wonderful. Another lens is looking through family and friends, and I'm so grateful to have a partner who's so committed to being awake in this life. Um, I'm so lucky. We got a puppy, so we have two dogs, which is really fun. I live a pretty solitary life, but I really appreciate my friends, and mostly between the courses that I'm leading with the Year of Living Mindfully, Transformational Journey, which is a, a group I've been with of leading men in some great practices over the last decade, doing a course on the Eightfold Path with a group of wonderful people. Just being the best game in town. Another lens is life administration. I'm going to guide you through these for your own reflection, which is just administrating life. I'm getting better at tracking my finances. I'm also simplifying more and more. Every time I do a retreat, I just want to get rid of what I don't need. And I'm beginning to feel a little less burdened by that stuff. Right livelihood, serving and making one's way in the life. So fortunate. Again, and like letting life come to me, I'm really enjoying the Year of Living Mindfully and this deep dive into somatic inquiry, working with really wonderful folks. I do some work one-on-one with folks, which has been great, some mentoring, been great. A lens, and for me, an important one is creativity. And being able to do a Dharma talk like this, probably 45 a year, sometimes feels like a grind, but mostly it's just such a beautiful creative process. This year, in offering the Year of Living Mindfully, with a whole focus on training and somatic inquiry, I've loved the creativity of putting together a fresh curriculum. Um, and one of my great loves is photography and being out on the river and capturing what's out there. It's, it's a real form of joy for me. Another category, almost done, service. And here I have my dad as a role model. My dad was a well-wisher of all. He just he was just a good guy who really wished everyone well. And I want to let his life come through me that way. So everything I do really is in that vein. I really feel in my heart of hearts it's about being in some form of service, through the podcast, through courses, um, through mentoring. And the last one is around rest, renewal, and fun. Part of the serve and savor thing I tend to talk about. So lots of joy, lots of things that fill me up. Paddling on the river, working with images, one of my favorite things, time in nature, time with Tara, open water swimming, being in flow. So much to be grateful for. So, a reflection. Mary Oliver said these three things, which I love. Number one, pay attention. Number two, be astonished. Number three, tell about it. So I'd like to offer you just a little reflection and just kind of let let whatever come up for yourself. This won't be too long, but I think it's important to acknowledge the good in your life, where you see signs of ease, where you see signs of clarity, where you experience kindness. So if you like, you can close your eyes. You don't have to. When you think about your health, your life force, your vitality, your radiance, what's working? Can you just name three things that are you're grateful for? The next category is your connection to spirit, spirituality, your practice. What touches your heart? Family and friends, connection. What comes to mind when you look at what you're grateful for? Moving on. When you think of life administration, being a steward of the kind of the details of your life, what are you grateful for? What's working? Moving on. When you reflect on right livelihood, your work in the world, just one or two or three things that you're grateful for. Moving on. When you think of giving back, of service to others, what comes to mind when you look through this lens of gratitude? And moving on to reflect on in your life creativity, of rest, of renewal, of fun and adventure. When you look back over this year, what comes to mind? If you'd like, you can deepen your breath and open your eyes. When I thought about what I'm grateful for, what's working, I just thought, what if I broaden this out? And so I worked with AI, asking for the five most positive things that have happened this year. And this is kind of interesting. Renewables became the world's leading source of electricity. And that's a structural turning point in our global system of moving from fossil fuels. Second, this is what AI said: ratification of the first legally binding high seas protection treaty. And it creates a global legal framework for ocean biodiversity. Number three are major public health milestones. There are now malaria-free countries. There are disease elimination. There are new treatments that are coming up. So there's been demonstrable progress against endemic infection, disease, and breakthroughs in terms of treating illness. Number four, breakthroughs in cancer and genetic therapies, not only toward preventing, but treating cancers. And number five, this one was interesting and cheered me up: green sea turtle reclassification. Biodiversity recovery is a key indicator in successful conservation, and shifting the green sea turtle from endangered to least concern suggests that there are some habitat restorations that are working. So, hey, there's some good happening. So, when you are creating an intention, it's very helpful to begin with appreciation, because when you open up this portal of gratitude, it strengthens a sense of confidence. Even when you look at small shifts, you begin to realize that freedom and spaciousness and happiness quite often show up quietly. It's a gradual process. And when you reflect on what you're so grateful for in your life, you'll naturally find yourself wanting to protect that. You'll begin to identify the patterns that are working for you. And it's so important. And an emphatic point here is to have this conversation with people. It's a really powerful conversation. Quite often when I'm having a conversation, I find a wonderful question to ask is, what are you excited about in your life? What's working? Such a powerful way to open up a conversation, but it helps to reinforce that sense of possibility. If you don't notice what's working in your life, you'll keep trying to fix what may not be broken. So, looking for the good, flushing your system with gratitude, so important. And if you want clarity, your clarity will deepen when you are equally honest about what's not working. And so the second question has to do with cutting through delusion. What you're telling yourself that isn't true, that actually is. What you're believing that is true, that actually isn't. A classic example of recognizing something isn't working was as the Buddha was in his process of awakening. His early days were given toward extreme practices, extreme asceticism, denying the body pleasure, denying the body food, and I'm just kind of paying attention to that process. And while it was profound and while he was having great insights, he realized that deep asceticism was not leading to awakening. And so he abandoned those practices. So it requires a real rigor. I was very touched by someone my age who said to me, he said, I've been going it alone my whole life. Being independent has really worked for me, but I'm beginning to sense the downside. As I age, I'm beginning to realize that this is a familiar coping strategy that may not be working for me as I get older. That really struck a chord for me because that's in many ways as a poster boy introvert. I'm really aware of that in my life. It's something I need to take a look at. So when I look at, I want to ask you this question. This one's good. If you take all these filters, all these lenses, health, your spiritual practice, friends, family, life administration, right, livelihood, creativity, all those factors in your life, and you put them in a blender and you blend them up, and you had to kind of rate where you are on a scale of 1 to 10, what number would you give your life in terms of 10 being really happy and 1 being really, really not happy? And the next question is, well, what's between you and a 10? Now, chances are that there are 1 or 2, or maybe more, but 1 or 2 main issues. And it's really important to name them, acknowledge them, and even the sense like, what if these 2 issues had no effect on you? What would that feel like? What would that be like? So, as I've gone through these filters, I'll take you through this quick. I'm a little self-conscious about all of this, but I'm hoping it might be helpful. Health, vitality, energy, radiance. Well, a plant-based diet, being vegan, is a great diet. I love it, but it's much higher maintenance. You really have to be aware of essential vitamins and minerals and all that kind of stuff. And I went too long without getting my blood tested. Um, Kind of a sluggish thyroid. And so I looked closer and I realized all this fancy salt that I've been eating all these years didn't have any iodine. My B12, I was taking supplements, but not enough. Omega 3s, which are really, really hard to get, I wasn't getting enough. And it was starting to show up in terms of my how I was feeling. Um, so that was kind of an eye opener for me, realizing, oh my gosh, I need to pay a lot more attention toward um, what's kind of in many ways, a high maintenance diet. I'm noticing I'm aging. Not only a migrating hairline, but it's harder to keep muscle on, and I'm having to adjust my strength training. Um, when it comes to my practice to kind of spirituality, I'm sitting every day. I have not missed a day, but I'm aware that my practice can get dry, kind of perfunctory. Um, it's easy to get caught up in really busy patterns. And it's so important to kind of realize that in my spiritual practice, it's really important that I really see how getting busy as a way of soothing my anxiety is not supporting me in the long run. The filter of family and friends. Again, I'm an extreme introvert, and I'm realizing that, yikes. Um, you know, you're an introvert when you get a rush of well-being when someone cancels. And I'm just exploring kind of my conditioning around that. Again, part of it is just a recognition of like, wow, I'm really used to being alone. All my favorite activities are alone. And what's the downside of that? The filter of life administration. I can always be more organized. Um, I have a living trust. I'm not sure it's really where I want it to be. I haven't figured out what to do with all my digital assets, all my digital talks, my all my images. Um, I have still not indexed my talks, my photos, this organization to do there. In terms of right livelihood, I'm so grateful I get to do what I do. I've always been, should I be marketing? I don't have any, I do nothing when it comes to promoting myself out in the world other than my newsletter and just kind of putting stuff up. I get so depleted when I look at social media and looking at someone's, oh, we should be doing more YouTube shorts, and I can't do it. And part of the realization was I'm just going to focus on what I do, and that's enough. In terms of creativity, the big one for me is I started this project on attentional strategies toward working toward pain, and I did not complete it last year. I'm very, very busy this year. I really want to get this done. It's about 80% there, but I'm planning on taking like 3 weeks to completely immerse myself in the next couple of months. Through the lens of service, always the question, am I doing enough? Am I really doing enough? So sitting with that. So when you reflect on on what's not working, it's helpful to recognize the patterns in your life that lead to contraction or agitation. Let me take you through these. I think I need to say a whole lot around the self-judgment we get into. And as I mentioned, each of these lenses, just we're going to take about 20 or 30 seconds, and just if you can try and bring three things into mind that are kind of you between you and a 10. So beginning with health, with energy, vitality, radiance, life force. What's between you and feeling great about this? Your spirituality, meditation practice, connection to presence. What's between you and feeling great about this? When you think about family and friends, what's between you and feeling great? When you think of the lens of life administration, managing the details of your life, is there anything here that's between you and feeling really good? And right livelihood, making your way in the world through service and being financially viable. What's between you and feeling really good? And giving back and service. And sensing through this lens of creativity, rest, renewal, and fun. What's between you and feeling great about this? If you like, you can deepen your breath. We went through these pretty quickly, but I'll put these categories in the show notes and in YouTube if you'd like to look at them later. And we will go a little bit deeper to this in the day long. I'll be leading in January. But here's the thing. To clarify your intention requires honesty. And when you reflect on what's between you and feeling great, it's so important that blame and shame, just set them to the side and sense as best you can to really see cause and effect. And we all know this, but stress and suffering are a teacher. When you look at where the dissatisfaction is in your life, it will point you toward a misalignment. Just seeing it sets the stage for new possibilities. And once you see it, you cannot abandon what you see. Once something is seen clearly, the heart naturally inclines toward correction, but not through force, but through wisdom. That's such a critical thing because we're all so steeped in negativity bias. Let me read that again. Once something is seen clearly, the heart naturally inclines toward correction, not through force, but through wisdom. So this leads us to the third element here, which is about correction. When we look through the lens again of classic Dharma, and we look at right effort, like what it means to really apply yourself in life, it has to do with prevention, abandonment, cultivation, and sustaining. Think of mindfulness, non-judging awareness as this little sprout. It gets trampled really easily, so it needs a greenhouse. It needs some protection. So it becomes a reflection on how to prevent unwholesome states from arising, how to abandon unskillful states when you experience them, how to cultivate wholesome states, and then how to sustain them. I was working with someone a good while back, and they identified this ruthless critic, just a brutal, ruthless critic. And he was so aware of how he was really crippled by this voice. It's kind of a combination of his parents, his grandparents, and some other voices that just were so extremely, extremely judgmental. And it became a question of like, well, how do you work with this ruthless critic? And There's one cool thing, which is to give your critic a ridiculous name. I've always thought the name Ruprecht was a really ridiculous name. So we talked about it. He decided to name his ruthless critic Ruprecht. And he would just simply say, Ruprecht, thank you for sharing. And I love that. It's about adjustment. Quite often, the adjustments we need to make in life are small. If you could imagine what it would feel like to be just 10% kinder today, what would that feel like? What would it be like tomorrow if you were just 10% slower? And so we're caught in this paradox of wanting to improve ourselves and at the same time recognizing there's perfection in the moment. Shunryo Suzuki, who wrote Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, said to his students, he once said, each of you is perfect the way you are, and you could use a little improvement. So, how do we improve? Usually, what we want to do is find what's wrong and nuke it. But as I say, somewhat ad nauseum, it's really about familiarity. When you become really familiar with a pattern, that leads to wisdom. It's a much softer approach, less force, more curiosity. And quite often, correction in your life is not about making a choice. It's about really, again, that sense of deep inner listening, where the choice kind of comes from within. So I'm going on here, but the next question is, what's calling? How do you open to what's possible? My teacher used to say it's better to aim for the stars and miss than shoot for something close by and hit it. And so that's kind of represented by the Bodhisattva vow. Again, back to classical Dharma, that you are awakening. Your intention is to awaken not just for yourself, but for the well-being of others. That reframes spiritual practice in a powerful way because it moves from that essential narcissism to the intention to awaken for self and to be a benefit for all beings. So as I kind of reflected on what's calling me, because I've been doing this for a long time, I was reminded of a friend's house where we used to go when we were kids. And they had a shortwave radio, this old time Grundig shortwave radio. And I loved that radio. It had a big dial. You could get into shortwave bands and kind of get the frequency, then a small dial where you could fine tune the adjustment. And I think for many of us, we've made a lot of the gross changes in life, and now it's more kind of the subtlety, the subtle stuff. So I'll take you through real quickly some of the tweaks in my life. Through this lens of health, energy, vitality, and radiance, I'm such a big believer in what we call medicine 3.0, which is focusing on prevention. So it's kind of upping regular blood work. I've come across I'm kind of excited about a new approach to work with these structural migraines with this damaged ligament I have in my neck from a fall. Constantly tweaking my diet. I'm just, again, subtle. In terms of my meditation practice, I want to continue with a regular practice. I get so much from retreats and scheduling those in. I get so much from being around people who are interested in practice. I want to continue with that. I'm exploring more and more what it means to really surrender into the moment, just to rest in presence. In terms of this lens of family and friends, I'm really committed to maintaining a high level of connection and trust with my partner, to really embrace being a well-wisher of all. In terms of this filter of life administration, again, just keep tweaking. Just to trust every time I go on a retreat, I do another round of purging. That's kind of working. I bought some software that's going to go through all of my images and um, give them keywords, which is really, really cool. Um, I'm going to get some guidance on how do I deal with my digital assets when I'm no longer in my body. In terms of right livelihood, I'm deeply committed to all the different programs that I'm leading. Possibly another year of living mindfully at the very end of the following year. Um, there's some possible trainings I might create in the future that are very exciting. Through the lens of creativity, I'm so loving the creativity in my life right now. Just the curriculum I'm creating. I'm really committed to completing this series on transforming your relationship with pain. There's a lot of creative work there. And I'm also looking at the possibility. I've been here almost 20 years on the river of doing a book, maybe even a show on 20 years here at Riverbend Park. In terms of the lens of service, so much of what I'm doing is kind of geared that way. And rest, renewal, and fun is an edge for me. I like being engaged. I'm not someone to just kind of hang out, but there's a lot of good stuff in the year ahead. Some river rafting, some open water swimming, time in nature, good people. I have in the past, almost every year, I take some creative project. I do a little bit every day after meditation. I'm not sure what that might be. So let me bounce this back to you. It's a really interesting question. Here's a question for you. If you stopped managing your life, what would naturally want to move forward? It's so important to slow down around this question of what's calling. The poet David White said, there is a life that's trying to live through you. So let me ask you some questions. You might close your eyes. There's a wonderful practice I love to do sometimes. It's just what if and let the mind go wild. When you sense this filter of health, of energy, vitality, and radiance, what calls you? What lights you up in this year ahead? When you reflect on spirituality, your practice, your connection to spirit, what would most deeply and intimately support you? When you reflect on family and friends, what would most light you up in this year ahead? When you reflect on life administration, what would give you a greater sense of ease in the year ahead? When you reflect on right livelihood, your work in the world, what lights you up? When you think of giving back, of service, what comes to mind as a wholesome expression? And when you think about creativity, about rest and renewal, fun and adventure, what would most light you up inside? And if you like, you can deepen your breath. If you like, you can open your eyes if they're closed. When it comes to intention, once you're really clear on intention, it will mature into devotion, a deep sincerity. But we can't invent purpose. We have to listen inward to kind of uncover it. Quite often, the sense of what it is you can't not do, which is a definition of purpose, it's a quiet pull inside. This is where practice, meditation comes in really handy. If you don't have a clear sense, find some time to create some space because your deepest intention is not chosen, it's received. And there's an art of listening to that still small voice. So, wise intention, discerning your North Star, is first about sensing what works, flooding yourself with gratitude and appreciation. It's about the clarity of seeing what's not working. It's about looking really closely at how you can correct from a sense of wisdom and compassion, and then opening to what most calls you. So you might, in the next couple days, take some time to notice something that's working in your life, just to honor it. And when you notice something that's not working, explore what it's like to soften your grip. Sense how you might adjust internally and pause deeply and just listen for what's calling. Just another 30 seconds. Zen pop quiz. You might close your eyes. Just reflecting on this very short line. Set your heart on what matters and let the path reveal itself. Take a moment just to sense, and you may not have an immediate answer, what most matters in your life. Is it possible that you could hold your intention on that, whatever it may be, and let the path reveal itself? Let the path come to you. If you like, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you for listening to my indulgence into my life. But I hope in some way that this might help you clarify the North Star in your life and what most calls you and to live the happiest, most full life possible. So many blessings. Happy trails.